A world war is a massive, global conflict that goes far beyond the borders of just one or two countries. It's a type of war that involves many nations from different continents, all becoming part of a single, overwhelming crisis. These wars draw in some of the world's most powerful countries, often because of political alliances, economic interests, or shared threats. The involvement of these major powers means the conflict quickly spreads, touching almost every corner of the globe. It's not just two nations fighting, it's entire alliances of countries, each bringing their own armies, resources, and strategies into a single devastating struggle. The world becomes divided into opposing sides, and the effects ripple out to impact millions of lives. In the past, we've seen two such wars. World War I, which began in 1914 and involved countries from Europe, Asia, Africa, and beyond, and then World War II, starting in 1939, which was even larger and more destructive, changing the world forever and reshaping borders, governments, and societies. Today, our world is more interconnected than ever before. With instant communication, global trade, and advanced transportation, a third world war would be even more widespread and destructive, affecting people everywhere in ways we can hardly imagine. What makes a war a world war is its scale. Alliances mean a small conflict can quickly grow, like a spark igniting a forest fire. One disagreement or incident can pull in dozens of countries, turning a local problem into a global disaster. Modern world wars would involve advanced technology, drones, cyber warfare, satellites, and powerful missiles, making them even more frightening and unpredictable than those of the past. Imagine a playground argument that pulls in everyone, except this is with countries, armies, and powerful weapons. What starts as a small dispute can quickly spiral out of control, with consequences for the entire planet. The reasons for war are often complex, ranging from political disagreements to competition for resources, but the result is always the same: massive, dangerous conflict that disrupts lives and communities everywhere. Learning about world wars reminds us why it's so important to solve problems peacefully, through dialogue and cooperation, rather than violence. By understanding history and the true impact of world wars, we can work together to build a safer, more peaceful future for everyone on Earth. World War III wouldn't start out of nowhere. It wouldn't be a sudden, unexpected explosion, but rather a slow buildup of tension and unresolved issues simmering beneath the surface. Instead, it would likely begin with smaller problems, disputes, accidents, or misunderstandings that spiral out of control, each one adding fuel to the fire. Fights over resources like oil, water, or rare minerals could quickly escalate if countries compete for control. As populations grow and technology advances, the demand for these resources only increases, making them even more valuable and more likely to be fought over. Disputes over land or territory have sparked wars before. An invasion or even a border skirmish could trigger a chain reaction, with alliances and treaties pulling more nations into the conflict. Deep differences in beliefs, cultures, or government systems can also fuel conflict, especially if one nation tries to force its way on another. Ideological clashes can be just as dangerous as physical ones, creating lasting resentment and mistrust. Sometimes, even a simple mistake, a false alarm, a computer glitch, or a misinterpreted signal, could accidentally trigger a war. In a world full of advanced technology and instant communication, the risk of error is always present. In a tense world, a single misunderstanding or miscommunication could lead to disaster before anyone realizes what's happening. The speed at which events unfold today leaves little time for second thoughts or corrections. The combination of competition, mistrust, and powerful weapons makes the risk of escalation very real. When nations are armed and on edge, even small provocations can have outsized consequences. History shows that small sparks can ignite global fires. What starts as a local dispute can quickly grow into something much larger, drawing in countries from every corner of the world. That's why it's crucial for countries to communicate openly, build trust, and resolve disputes before they grow. Diplomacy and dialogue are the first lines of defense against catastrophe. Preventing war starts with understanding what could set it off. By identifying the warning signs and addressing them early, we can reduce the risk of conflict. The world's peace depends on careful choices, clear heads, and a willingness to work together, even when it's difficult. Only then can we hope to avoid the sparks that could ignite a global fire. In a new world war, countries would quickly form alliances, teams based on shared interests and old promises. One major alliance might include the United States and European nations, united by NATO and common values. Opposing them, a bloc led by Russia and China could form, joined by countries seeking to challenge the current world order. These alliances would pool military strength, making the conflict truly global. Many smaller nations would be caught in the middle, pressured to pick sides or risk being drawn in anyway. Neutrality would be difficult, as war often spills over borders. Some countries might choose alliances for protection or economic help, not just shared beliefs. The web of connections would mean a fight in one region could quickly involve nations worldwide. The world would be divided into massive armed camps, ready for a conflict that could touch every corner of the globe. The lines would be drawn fast, and no one would be truly safe. Even with new technology, a world war would still be fought on land and sea. Armies would clash in strategic regions, borderlands, cities, and resource-rich areas, destroying everything in their path. Soldiers would face advanced threats, from drones to robotic fighters, while cities could become deadly battlegrounds. At sea, powerful navies would battle for control of vital shipping lanes, using aircraft carriers, submarines, and warships. Controlling the oceans would mean controlling the world's supply lines. Submarines would wage a silent war beneath the waves, launching surprise attacks and hunting each other in the deep. The fight for land and sea would be brutal, with every inch contested. Victory would depend on technology, strategy, and the will to endure. The devastation would be felt far beyond the front lines. The skies would become a critical battlefield in a Third World War. Fighter jets and bombers would strike deep into enemy territory, while drones would gather intelligence and launch precision attacks. Swarms of small drones could overwhelm defenses, making the air more dangerous than ever. Control of the air would decide battles on the ground and at sea. The conflict would also reach into outer space, where satellites are vital for communication, navigation, and surveillance. Nations would target enemy satellites with missiles or killer satellites, risking a cascade of space debris. Losing satellites would cripple armies and disrupt daily life on Earth. A war in space could trap humanity on our planet, ending dreams of future exploration. The final frontier would become a new battlefield, with consequences for everyone. Air and space power would shape the outcome of the war, and the future of our world. In a modern world war, some of the most important and decisive battles would be fought not on land, sea, or air, but in cyberspace. Here, invisible armies clash in a digital realm, where the weapons are lines of code, and the targets are the very systems that keep nations running. Hackers would target enemy computer systems to steal secrets, disrupt services, and create chaos. These digital warriors could operate from anywhere in the world, launching attacks that ripple across continents in seconds. Power grids, banks, and transportation networks could be shut down with just a few keystrokes, crippling a country from within. Everyday life would grind to a halt as critical infrastructure collapses, leaving millions in the dark and disconnected. Cyber attacks could also spread misinformation, turning citizens against their own leaders and sowing confusion. False news and digital propaganda would flood social media, making it nearly impossible to separate fact from fiction. The line between truth and lies would blur, making it hard to know what's real. Trust in institutions and information could erode, leaving societies vulnerable to manipulation and fear. Defending against these attacks would require armies of cybersecurity experts, locked in a constant battle of wits. These defenders would need to anticipate threats, patch vulnerabilities, and respond to attacks in real time, often with only seconds to spare. A single successful hack could tip the balance of power, disabling defenses or opening the way for a devastating strike. The consequences of a breach could be immediate and catastrophic, changing the course of the conflict in an instant. In World War III, the person behind a keyboard could be as important as any soldier on the front lines. Their skills and decisions might determine the fate of entire nations. The invisible war online would be relentless and unpredictable, with attacks coming from unexpected directions and evolving every day. Cyber warfare would touch every aspect of life, from the battlefield to the home. No one would be truly safe from its reach, as digital threats could strike at any moment. The digital front would be as dangerous as any other, and in this new era of conflict, the fight for control over cyberspace could decide the fate of the world. For ordinary people, a world war would turn daily life upside down. Cities could be bombed, forcing families to flee and become refugees. Even far from the fighting, shortages of food, fuel, and medicine would be common as global trade collapses. Rationing would become the norm, with long lines for basic supplies. Factories would shift from making consumer goods to producing weapons, changing the economy overnight. Governments would take more control, imposing curfews, censoring news, and restricting freedoms in the name of security. People could be arrested without trial, and suspicion would run high. The human cost would be staggering. Millions of lives lost, families separated, and entire communities destroyed. The psychological toll would be immense, as fear and grief become part of everyday life. The scars of war would last for generations, long after the fighting ends. The simple joys of normal life would be a distant memory. War would touch everyone, everywhere. Even in the darkest times, there would be efforts to end the fighting. Neutral nations and organizations like the United Nations would push for peace talks and ceasefires. Inside warring countries, brave people would protest, demanding an end to the violence. Diplomats would work behind the scenes, searching for compromise and common ground. As the war drags on and suffering grows, pressure to stop would mount. Exhaustion and ruin might finally force leaders to negotiate. True peace would require difficult choices and a willingness to forgive. Rebuilding would be slow, but it would begin with the hope that war never returns. Imagining a third world war is frightening, but it shows us what's at stake. Modern weapons could destroy cities, poison the environment, and shatter our way of life. Our world is deeply connected. War would break those bonds, leaving us isolated and afraid. Peace is a choice we must make every day, by solving problems through dialogue, not violence. Respecting differences and working together brings far more progress than fighting ever could. Each of us has a role to play, from our communities to our leaders. The future isn't written. We can choose to build bridges, not walls. By learning from history, we can avoid repeating its mistakes. The dream of a peaceful world is worth fighting for, with courage, kindness, and hope. The story of tomorrow is up to us.